Good evening, everyone. In this video, before I continue discussing the story, I wanted to verify with you all. Once more, comparing each other's traumas is like comparing apples to oranges. This is not just because we all bear different crosses, but also because, if we do so, we cannot empathize, and we are afraid to tell our stories. And therefore we never do. And our stories are who we are. They're everything that this world has shaped us into. If you do not tell them, how much of you actually exists? How far will it continue? Where will it go? Who will know? Tell your story. I'll tell you this. As weak of a human being as I may be, as fallible, as selfish, as self-interested, as ungrateful as I may be, I will tell you this. I'm there for you. I'll listen. You need not fear anything from me. You can tell me what's going through your mind, your heart, your soul, in private, anonymously, or whatever your decision may be. I also want to preface before I continue. Whenever somebody is telling their story, one of the principal things people tend to worry about, especially if it's anonymous, is whether or not that person is thinking about ending their lives. I'm going to tell you this flat out, for those of you who know me and for those of you who do not. I would never, in a billion years, ever think about doing something like that. Nor should you. Which is exactly why you must tell your stories. Even if it seems like nobody will hear them. I promise you, someone will. And let's continue. Flight 3 saw my crew experience an autopilot failure, which required attaining a waiver for extended duty day. This was cause for possible crew resource management issues due to pilot fatigue, but none had arisen. The mission was accomplished, quote-unquote, as fragged. Flight 4 saw my crew experience an in-flight emergency, where the number 4 engine in our aircraft caught fire due to poor welding. I'm not going to give other details about it, but that's essentially what happened. The takeoff was continued, and the aircraft commander accomplished it. Procedures were accomplished as necessary, and the aircraft was taken in for normal 3-engine approach after fuel dumping procedures. We can't get into details about exactly how that stuff is done, but that's what it was. The flight was potential cause for crew resource management issues once more, but none arose. In fact, my crew won an award for how well we handled that emergency. The crew took off again 3 hours later with an augmented front end. I, as the co-pilot, accomplished takeoff and landing on the second half of the mission. The augmented pilot with us at the time took the aerial refueling for that flight. Middle of June. My crew is now on its own accomplishing the missions. The first 2 flights on our own are very stressful for me, and the aircraft commander is being very meticulous and repetitive about specific details with regards to certain aspects of radio calls and general pilotage. During this time, I, as the co-pilot, had not yet made a habit of going to the back end in order to get to know the rest of the crew. One person in the back end informed me approximately 5 or 6 flights in that it would probably be a good idea for me to start heading back to get to know the rest of the crew on a consistent basis. This was sold to me as a means of improving my overall crew resource management on the jet. I obliged to this, and right around Flight 7, I start going to the back end every flight. The back end crew is happy to introduce me to their specific jobs, and probably more importantly, they're happy that a front end crew member, such as myself, is taking an interest in their work, because they typically don't. The next 2 or so flights, I don't go to the back end because I'm studying diligently in order to provide a good opportunity for myself and the aircraft commander to accomplish workbook items. We have to do these things called workbooks, basically to check boxes to show that we've accomplished certain milestones in our knowledge, in our learning about the jet and general pilotage and stuff like that. Around Flight 9, I set up a routine where I go to the back end of the jet for the first hour, and yeah, so I set up a routine for that. At approximately Flight 5, my father had a massive stroke that physically crippled my father from the waist down for about a week, and he was also verbally impaired indefinitely. This was one of 14 strokes that my father has had in his life, and I actually explained that earlier on in this discussion of my story. So I informed the front end of my crew on one of the mission planning days before the next flight, so that they are fully aware, and I know that it would be selfish of me to keep such an important piece of knowledge to myself, as this would adversely affect crew resource management. So I talk with them, and I also talk with another one of the pilots in charge about the situation. He informs me that the resources are in place to keep airmen having personal difficulties. So I see the chaplain the next day, and no issues with regards to mission accomplishment / crew resource management were seen as a result of this. The issue was successfully compartmentalized by myself at this point. At approximately Flight 7, the aircraft commander and another individual on the front end take me aside after a flight and talk to me about front-end crew resource management and crew dynamic. The aircraft commander informs me that I am doing poorly, not only with crew resource management, but also with general ability. And I can tell you flat out, this is not true at all. It wasn't. He also informs me that compared to the average, I am not figuring out radio calls, and that if I was doing this poorly at this juncture, he feared that my ability to accomplish basic co-pilot duties before reaching the next stage in my flying career would have been an issue. The aircraft commander asks me if there were any issues other than those about which I had already mentioned. I inform him that no issues are present, other than some frustration from front-end crew dynamic. Note, I may have the ordering of this incorrect, as I cannot remember the exact time that my father had a stroke, and whether or not this discussion happened beforehand or after. So, the first half of July. Tensions are beginning to get very high with the front-end crew. From my perspective, it seems that the aircraft commander feels that his leadership is being compromised. Difficulties in determining who is accomplishing what items during specific phases of flight arise. The aircraft commander maintains a system where the co-pilot gets the first portion of aerial refueling, and the aircraft commander takes the rest. Frustrations over safety of this plan, because of a perceived inability of the co-pilot to maintain a level head in the face of tanker mistakes, causes further frustration with the front end crew. Front end issues come to a head when, on approximately Flight 17, the co-pilot takes an onload of a certain amount of fuel and experienced no issues with the onload itself. However, one of the people in the front end state during refueling that he felt nervous because of some of the statements from my mouth with regards to deliberate sabotage of a good refueling day on the part of the tanker. And this is where I was starting to let what seemed like constant badgering by those around me start to sink into me. And I can't prove any of this, whether or not it was actually happening. I fully understand this. The sad truth is, none of you could be in my shoes at that time. So, this really will sound rather, well, it just won't sound, I can't prove it to you. And perhaps I shouldn't even say it, but I've got to tell you the story. And you don't know who I am, so this works out fine. And I'm not telling any classified information here. I'll continue with it, though, in the next part of the discussion. I'll figure out how to bring it to you. Thank you.